My name is Melissa Hopwood. I'm the National Pathway Manager for Australian Canoeing, and so my responsibilities lie in things related to athlete development as well as coach development. So one of the big programs within the Athlete Pathways portfolio, if you like, is the National Elite Development Program. So you're probably familiar with the NEDP. I'm going to refer to it as the NEDP from now. It's a little bit easier to say. So you're probably familiar with the NEDP. You may have athletes or children who have been part of the program in the past. The program has not had a manager dedicated for the last 12 months or so, and so in 2014, 2015 we're going to revamp the program. We're going to be updating it a little bit according to some changes that have been happening within the high performance system within AC. We're starting to bring those down into the pathway as well. So what I'd like to do today, this is just a little bit of an introduction and overview of what is the National Elite Development Program, what it means to be an athlete in that program, what are the requirements of athletes in the NEDP, and also what are the responsibilities of the NEDP coaches. So I'm basically going to be running through this handout that you've all got a copy of. Like I said before, I won't be reading it word for word, but I just want to highlight some of the key points from the handout that give you some idea on those key areas. So the main aim of the NEDP is to be a bridging program between club participation in sprint canoe and ultimate high performance in the senior national team and the National Centre of Excellence and our SISAS, our State Institute of Sport programs. So in our athlete pathway, that's where the NEDP fits. It's for pre-elite athletes, so primarily athletes who are going to be on Olympic hopes, under 18 and some under 23 athletes who might not be in a State Institute of Sport. And then there's also a little bit of room for athletes who might not quite meet those criteria, but are showing some great performance improvements, some rapid performance improvements, and have demonstrated the potential to progress onto those national teams in the near future. So there are 5 key pillars that underpin the National Elite Development Program, and what we're really trying to do through the NEDP is build these 5 key areas within our junior elite athletes. So the first one of those is skill development. So what we want to do is provide an opportunity for these emerging athletes to receive some high quality coaching support under programs that are being directed and passed on from our senior national team coaching staff. So our NEDP coaches are going to be receiving some on-water programming advice from our senior national team coaches and delivering that to the athletes within the NEDP. In addition to the on-water component, there'll also be a strength and conditioning component of the training program to enhance both technical skill on the water as well as physical capabilities. And again, that strength and conditioning programming advice is going to be coming from our senior national team strength and conditioning coaches. So we're trying to make high performance information accessible to our emerging athletes coming through. What that also does is it prepares our athletes for the physical demands of being a high performance athlete. The second key pillar is individual athlete performance planning and monitoring. So again, what we're trying to do is prepare athletes for the journey of becoming a high performance athlete. And when you're on the senior national team, you're required to sit down with your coach and plan out your season. Acknowledge your goals, identify where you need to make some improvements, and develop a plan to work towards those goals. And then once you have a plan, what you need to do is you need to sit down and every now and again check in with yourself and with your coach and with your times and check how you're going according to that plan. So our national team athletes are already doing it. Some athletes already do it with their coach. But again, we're going to be using the same system that's recommended by the senior national team and modify that and work it in to start planning and monitoring with our junior elite athletes. The third pillar is performance excellence and education. Now, what's really important is that it's not just your technical ability and your physical capabilities that make you a good athlete. It's also about being a good sports person and making a contribution to the community as well. So there's a lot more than technique and strength and conditioning in being a high performance athlete. We also need to know about nutrition, we need to know about psychology, we need to know a little bit about drugs and alcohol and how they can influence your performance. So built into the National Elite Development Program for 2014-2015 is what we've called a Personal Excellence Athlete Education Program, where you'll be engaging in some workshops with specialists from our high performance network to help you learn about being a high performance athlete. The fourth pillar is team boat development. So as you know, K2s and K4s are important as well as your K1s, but often as junior athletes you may not have access to either crew boats or an appropriate level of teammate to help build a K4. So what the NEDP can do is facilitate some interaction with other athletes who are the same age as you and the same skill level as you, that you can start to build your skills in a team boat. We start to try out some different combinations. And the fifth pillar is actually coaching development. One of the most important components of athlete development is coach development. So if we can help to upskill the NEDP coaches through this programming advice and through offering them some coach development opportunities, then the athletes will benefit from those opportunities as well. And what we're also asking the NEDP coaches to do is to share some of the knowledge that they're receiving through this coach development component of the program with the other coaches in their network. So let's just use an example in Sydney. We've got an NEDP hub on Sydney's Northern Beaches with Christine Duff as the coach. It's quite likely that there will be some athletes from, let's say, for example, the Central Coast who are named in the NEDP squad. So the coach that's based in Sydney will work with the coach on the Central Coast to share some of the knowledge that she's been gaining through these coach development opportunities and to share some of the skills and the training programs that she uses with her athletes as an NEDP coach. So those are the 5 key aspects of the NEDP: skill development, individual athlete performance planning and monitoring, personal excellence and education, team development, and coach development. I will provide some time for questions, but what I'll do is I'll soldier on a little bit and I'll work through a few more areas within this handout. The key features are over the page. It's a little bit of a summary of some of the things I've already said, so I'm going to skip over that for now. You can read that in your own time. But what I'm going to focus on now is the athlete requirements. So athletes selected in the NEDP squad, and I should say that the selection criteria hasn't been published yet. I alluded to the types of athletes that are typically included in the NEDP, so it's usually junior national team members, some under-23s, some Olympic hopes and some emerging athletes, some athletes who are transitioning from surf, who have very good results in the surf, but have not had the chance yet to prove some results on the flat water. Those selection criteria will be published soon, and once that's published we'll also be working through and announcing a squad. But athletes who are selected, the requirements of these athletes are to maintain regular contact and effective communication with an NEDP coach. Some of these athletes will be working with the NEDP coach on a daily basis. It's their regular club coach. But other athletes, as I said, may be a little bit remote. So it's a requirement of the athlete and the coach to maintain a regular, effective relationship. Athletes will also be required to complete on a regular basis some recommended training sets and some time trials as part of the monitoring process. And they'll be required to attend a minimum of 1 NEDP squad session a month. So this is going to be an opportunity where all NEDP athletes within the region closest to the hub will get together to work on some of these team boat skills, to do some of the athlete performance excellence education programs, to do some monitoring. What we're trying to do is get this pre-elite group of athletes together on their own for a targeted training session approximately once a month. Athletes will be required to follow their strength and conditioning plan that has been approved and provided by the AC National Strength and Conditioning team. And what we're going to try and do, hopefully we're working on it throughout the hubs, is to get a strength and conditioning partner where you can have some supervision for a few of those training sessions to make sure that you're following the program correctly. And that will be with a university partner or a partner from the State Institute of Sport or the Regional Academy of Sport. It won't be for every strength and conditioning session, but we'll be checking in just to check on that on the form. Athletes will also obviously be required to regularly participate in competitions. So at a minimum, that's state and national championships for kayaking, as well as whatever surf lifesaving commitments you may have. Some states also run state-based sprint series events, and we're trying to increase the number of events and make sure that there's some fun events to be had to increase your competition experiences within your state as well. The athletes are required to attend the Personal Excellence Athlete Education sessions, and we haven't quite decided on the format of this. We're starting to engage with our network specialists to decide how we're going to run these, but there will probably be, it's likely there'll be perhaps 4 or 5 throughout the year. And the athletes will be required to work through with their coach, both their home coach and their NEDP coach, the individual performance planning and monitoring template that, as I said, we'll be adapting that from what the senior national team do. So you'll be engaging in a similar process to identify your goals and develop a plan to get there. To help with that process, we're starting to trial an app that you can get through your mobile phone, through your iPad, for a training diary that just records a little bit about how many hours you slept, what training you did that day, how you felt at training, what type of strength and conditioning you may have done. So it won't be too onerous, but just a fun little app that you can type in your training details so we can track your performance, see how you're going, hopefully pick up on when you might be getting a little bit tired, a little bit overtrained, when you've got too many commitments with school and surf and kayak, and how we can manage that a little bit better. So this is something, national team is starting to trial it, we're going to start to trial it as well. So that's it from the athlete side of things. The flip side of that is the coach. So the coach is going to have to maintain and help the athletes to meet these requirements. So that's the bulk of it for the coach, is making sure that they're communicating with the athletes, making sure the athletes are attending the monthly training sessions, making sure the athletes are adhering to their strength and conditioning plan, that they're filling in their training diaries, and that the coaches are communicating with the home coaches for each of the athletes, and also engaging in competition and helping you to do that. The NEDP coaches, they will be receiving that programming advice from the national team, but we'll also be asking the coaches to send their annual and weekly plans back to us so that we can have a look at them too and give some feedback. If they adapt the programs from the national coaches or for their yearly plan, we'll be able to provide some advice and just make sure that the coaches are on the same track. So the coaches are required to submit their plans to us and to help facilitate those individual performance planning and monitoring sessions. Now, in return for their services and to make sure that they're doing the best job possible with our athletes, as I said, coach development is a huge focus for the NEDP. So something that we're providing, the things that we're providing to these coaches to make sure that the athletes are getting the best service possible, is that we will be facilitating our NEDP coaches to attend a minimum of 1 coach development session at the AIS Centre for Performance Coaching and Leadership. So these are 2-day workshops that are offered by external providers such as Melbourne Business School, the National Institute of Dramatic Art, innovative thinking firms, that they don't develop necessarily coaches' technical knowledge and skills on the water, but they work on skills like communication, decision making, understanding mental health issues and how to identify good mental health and poor mental health. So it's all these other aspects of coaching we're helping to develop in our coaches by supporting them to visit one of these professional workshops. We'll also be making sure that the NEDP coaches are interacting with our national team coaches, not just through email and provision of these training programs, but also we can send them to the National Centre of Excellence for a week to see the coaches in action, or to the local State Institute of Sport to see the coaches in action, and vice versa. We'll make sure the national team coaches are coming to visit the NEDP coaches so that they can evaluate what's going on a daily basis, let them know they're on the right track, and give them a few hints and tips. At the same time, while the national coaches are down visiting, they can get in contact with the athletes, see the athletes in action, and give you some tips as well. And as I've mentioned a few times, the coaches will receive this programming advice and from a programming perspective, both on water and in the gym. Now, to outline our current NEDP network, which we do review every year, at the moment we've got the Sunshine Coast under head coach Chris Aliich. We're planning a Gold Coast hub for 2014-2015. We used to have a very successful Gold Coast hub, fell off the radar for a little while, but we're bringing it back. In Sydney, we're based at Sydney Northern Beaches with Christine Duff. We've got a hub in Melbourne. The coach of this program is to be determined. We're about to call out and do a bit of a scouting process for a new coach in Melbourne. We've got a hub in Tasmania under Jeremy Norton in Barrington. Peter Giargiulio is in Adelaide. Pete was the NEDP coach in Melbourne. He's coming across as Regional Pathway Coordinator in South Australia, and he has a dual role as National Elite Development Program coach. That's why we need a new coach in Victoria. And in Perth we have Guy Power based at Bayswater. So a really key thing with these NEDP hubs is that in states that have a State Institute of Sport program, the hubs are co-located with those programs. So in Perth, Guy is based right next to the WASTE program. In Sydney, Christine is based right next to the New South Wales Institute of Sport program. In South Australia, Sassy and the South Australian NEDP program train out of the same boat shed. So that's a key component of this NEDP, that athletes and coaches are connected to the next stage of the paddle pathway. In terms of provisions, this is sort of a bit of an administrating paperwork side of things, but so we're transparent about how the NEDP centres operate. From a financial perspective, the NEDP coaches do receive a provisional payment from us, and they also receive a discretional operational budget for needs such as craft, for boat shed hire, whatever kind of operational expenses may occur, visits to see home coaches and so on. So there is a budget for that. And then we provide a lot of in-kind support through those programmings and through the coach development opportunities. From a management perspective, as National Pathway Manager, I lead the NEDP network. In states where we have a regional pathway coordinator, and these are new positions that are being introduced, we have one starting up in South Australia, we have one starting in Queensland. So the regional pathway coordinator is the link between Australian canoeing, the state association and clubs. So the regional pathway coordinator will be helping out to manage these relationships and to help with the individual performance planning process. They'll be organising the workshops for the personal excellence program. So it'll be a combination of myself and the regional pathway coordinators where they are currently available, and we're looking to expand that network each year. Other than that, it's up to the NEDP coach to manage the relationship with their athletes and ensure compliance to all these requirements so that the athlete is getting the most out of the experience. We're not trying to make this an onerous task. We're not trying to add in too much red tape. What we're trying to do is making sure that these athletes are learning about high performance, that we're adequately preparing you for the transition into, hopefully, senior national teams. So the NEDP is shifting focus a little bit. It's about preparing you for a high performance journey. So that's about all that I've got to say, but I'm very happy to field questions, to answer any questions or respond to any ideas that you might have or feedback around the NEDP. Otherwise, what I would suggest is this document will be published on our website shortly, as will the selection criteria once that becomes available. And then as we progress on from there, when the squads are named, we'll get the squads all together and we'll have a bit of an induction day to start the process. And we'll get the coaches named for these new hubs as soon as possible, and we'll get things moving, hopefully in May, June.
All the events provided for coaches and athletes?
That's right, yep. So when the squads are named, we'll put together a calendar for the personal excellence programs, and I should have said this is a one-year program, so it will effectively run from May, June this year through to this time next year. So athletes are NEDP athletes for 1 year, the program running through to Nationals 2015, and then we repeat the process again. Any other questions?
So you're saying you haven't selected any selection criteria firmed up yet?
Yes.
Does that mean people have to apply, or you will approach them when you work with you?
The selection criteria, it won't change too much from how it has been in the past. And so the past year's selection criteria have been on the website each year, and they are primarily around performance at national championships or perceived potential from the national team coaches that this athlete deserves a little bit of support. They haven't had time to reach these benchmarks yet. So they are primarily around performance at this national championships, quite similar to the selection criteria for the national teams. It is unfortunate that we didn't get it in time to be available for nationals, but we will have it available and we'll make it very clear what the process is.
So these nationals will be counting?
Results from these nationals will be considered.
Thiago prepared himself for a long time, hurt his back 4 days before flying over.
Yep.
Has a doctor certificate
Yep.
of unfit to participate, so how is he?
Yeah, and that's why we have the input from the coaches as well, so that we can see if this athlete has been progressing and showing some improvement and has performed at other regattas like state championships and so on throughout the season, we can take that into consideration as well. There's a
coach will have to place that for you, direct communication.
Yes, and the national team coaches and the NEDP coaches will be aware of the athletes in the system as well, so there's a bit of discretion there. So if Tiago has been producing some results and they are aware of Tiago and have seen him in action, but obviously because of his situation at the Nationals he doesn't meet the criteria, that's when it slips into that other discretional component. So I mean, not everyone is going to be automatically in. We still do need to be a little bit selective, but it will be very clear in the criteria and the process to accommodate for those things.
Obviously, max day.
Right, and I understand that.
So just a quick question. With the whole of the goal post and the head coach,
Yes.
that be turned on your website?
Yes, yeah, we're still in that process. What we're thinking about, what has been asked in Victoria, is an open call for applications. So we might consider the same process for the Gold Coast. We're still working through that at the moment. Yeah.